All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Marks by Wrestling's Mount Rushmore matches. We're excited here. Again, me and my big brother David here to discuss another episode where we go into the past, try to find, somebody who maybe is a little slept on, a little forgotten, and relive their glory years and recommend a sampling of matches for you. So, a couple things today. We're really excited. We're going back to tag teams again. Of course, if you this is your first time seeing one of these videos, we've done episodes on the Steiner brothers, Nikita Koloff, and 2 episodes on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, an NWA and a WWF episode, which are all available on the channel. Today, I'm excited though. We've been linking individual matches to you guys, but at this point, what we're doing now is just going to creating a playlist for you guys on YouTube where all the matches we reference and maybe a couple of extra pieces of bonus content that we've curated about the career of the topic in question going forward. We'll be sharing that with you in the episode description. So today's subject, if you can tell by our t-shirts or even by the little Hasbros here, are, depending on how you grew up with them, Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, aka the Legion of Doom. Yeah, I mean, they pretty much only went by those names, but traversed multiple promotions over the course of their career. Were I'm going to go on a limb here, but maybe the first, what I would consider, Triple Crown tag team champions ever, when there were 3 major promotions. They were the first one to hold the tag team titles in all 3 of those promotions for the extent of their careers. So a big achievement there, and honestly, just a blueprint for a lot of other big, brutal, powerful, physical tag teams that came after them. Some of which are being inducted in the Hall of Fame this year, like Demolition. So, Demolition, the Powers of Pain. Even, if you can even go a little bit later into those early black and gold NXT years, the Ascension. But if there's 2 just big, muscly dudes who beat people up that aren't necessarily very technical and just domineering and intimidating, you look back to the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
And one of the few professional wrestlers that I've ever heard have a pop named after them, which to give you an idea of just how popular they were and their ability to engage a crowd. So Road Warriors, David, give me your, I still remember, now that I think about it, I wish I had taken the time to look for it. The Road Warriors were really like infused into our fandom at early ages. And I have remembered now when you and I, when our family lived in Virginia, shout out to my friend Benjamin. I remember taking a photo.
I was just saying hey to Benjamin.
Yeah. Sorry. I remember taking a photo. I couldn't have been more than 5, maybe 6, where we were doing a Road Warrior pose. Like, I think I had a tooth missing and everything, and it was like no face paint. Tongues out. Yeah, absolutely. And it was just, it was easy to jump on with, and everything. But as always, your fandom predates mine by a few years. So I came into, the Road Warriors when they were pretty well established in the NWA at this point, but they had already made a lot of waves before that. So you want to give the good people a little intro into the earlier years of the Road Warriors?
I'm going to try to keep this short, because when it goes back to the genesis of what we're talking about, I tend to be a little more long-winded than other portions. But my first, so let me start out by saying the Legion of Doom involved more than just the Road Warriors at first.
Yeah, it was a faction originally, right?
And it was in Georgia Championship Wrestling. This is the first place that I saw it. Now, I don't know where the first place they wrestled, but I know the big promotion once, even though Georgia Championship Wrestling was a part of the NWA as a whole, no, they went to AWA, but when they were in the Legion of Doom, and
2 pretty significant names in that faction too. Go ahead. Yeah. I said 2 pretty significant names.
Yeah, so they had Jake the Snake Roberts,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is who you're thinking about or not because I think there may have been some flip flops out. But Buzz Sawyer was he the other one you were
Oh,
thinking?
I might be wrong. It wasn't who I was. I thought I heard that King Kong Bundy was in there at one
Oh, you're
point.
right. You're right. Yeah, he was in there.
But Buzz Sawyer, a huge name in that time as well.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
bigger than Bundy
So
back then.
they were just like heat magnets. I mean, because they were. This was back in Jake the Snake's pre number five babyface days.
Right.
It was like, but just when you take into account somebody that can talk, even like a young Jake, uh, the physical specimen that the Road Warriors were, um, and even though there was a common thread among uh, these days that there's somebody even like L.A. Knight, he's really put together.
Yeah.
He's got a good physique, but there was nobody like the Road Warriors when the
Yeah.
Road Warriors came out. I mean, other than their contemporaries, uh, who would later become like Nikita Koloff, and then guys from that school, guys from that region of the country. But when I saw Hawk and Animal, so it was with the Legion of Doom, but it was a large faction. When they went to, and I believe they were still in Georgia Championship Wrestling when it had whittled down to just the two of them. But if not, if I'm wrong about that, it definitely was by the time they migrated to the AWA.
Mm-hmm.
They would feud with the likes of the Freebirds. Well, gosh, I probably shouldn't have started off with that, but that was
That's
probably
okay.
most important feud in the AWA.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then moving, spending some time in AWA, and I'm not exactly sure what year it was, but it was in the aftermath time. They were brought in to feud, brought into Crockett to feud with the Russians from there. And so when we get a little bit further down the line, I'll talk a little bit about how that introduction was, or comment on how that introduction was made. But yeah, I just remember the look of them, and I've noticed a trend in the way I view certain things. I said this on our Steiner episode that nobody scared me like in real life, like Rick Steiner. It was so believable the way. Let
Yeah.
me, given today's subject, let me take that back. That's because Hawk and Animal, even when Hawk was saying something hilarious, they were just the scariest thing. And I know they faced, in later years, the Powers of Pain and people who were comparable, but nobody had that complete package.
Yeah.
But anyway, early on, Legion of Doom, I guess, Georgia Championship Wrestling and AWA is where I really, took notice. But I would also say it was before they really had a rocket strapped to their back. So.
Yeah, bringing up the Legion of Doom as a faction, I think is pretty, is worth telling, because if you could imagine, speaking of modern wrestling in modern times, if you could imagine if the Vision didn't have any injuries, like with Heyman as their mouthpiece, a heat magnet like Logan Paul, like the violent specimens of both Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and these things, and the size, um, you know, comparable in its own way, like so many heavy hitters in that group in different ways, with a mouthpiece like Ellering too, who really was pretty well, mentally, put together on the mic and everything, really, really articulate, which counterbalanced just the roughshod, violent promo giving skills of the Road Warriors. Like, they were, for everything, you talk about the fear aspect, which I agree about, both the Steiners and like if the Steiners somehow walked into a Stephen King movie and came out looking like Pennywise the clown, you did have the Road Warriors almost like,
Right.
and like just with the face paint and the aggression, and like they could throw a clothesline as hard as a Steiner could too, and would for fun. And I'm more about that in a second. And the level of verbal violence they had, I think that was the thing too, is that like, there's a whole lot in pro wrestling, especially back in the 80s and stuff, of the let me tell you something, brother, kind of,
Yeah.
promo giving. But like, not only were they physically intimidating, but their words were so aggressive, which I don't think, you notice. And they found a way to maintain that even when they were in the WWF too. It was a little sanitized, as it would have to be, but they still found a way to still be really foreboding in those times. And they put them in feuds where you wanted to see them be violent against guys. And I don't want to give all the matches out as we're talking, but we'll get there. And the way they cut promos on that was so much fun. But so anyway, and we'll talk more about promos before we're done as well. But let's go ahead and get to the first match, since we're already dancing around some of their stuff. It is in the AWA. Where they first really cut their teeth and made their name. It's at one of AWA's big, like one of their WrestleManias, SuperClash in 1985. A card, by the way, that also has Magnum TA versus Ric Flair for the NWA title on it. Which I think the entire show is not in the playlist. We cut it down to just this match. But you can find that entire card either on the WWE channel, maybe on the Vault, one of those sister YouTube channels of WWE's. But it is the fabulous Freebirds, Road Warriors versus the Freebirds, SuperClash 1985 for the AWA tag team titles. The Freebirds were one thing I was surprised by. I thought they would still have been coming out to Freebird, but they apparently Bad Street USA was already a theme for them in 85.
Yeah, that was pretty early on. Yeah.
Okay. For some reason I thought that came a little bit later. I was surprised by that. And the Freebirds, this is Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts, the OG Freebird trio. And they were coming out with Confederate face paint as well to rival the Road Warriors. This is taking place in Chicago too, the Road Warriors' hometown, it should be noted. So wearing Confederate paraphernalia in Chicago was already going to get you some heat anyways. But them coming out and doing their thing, something I noticed right away, a recurring theme in Road Warrior matches. And I guess it was like, I don't know if it's what they call the Mandela effect, where you just convince yourself you remember something wrong or whatever, but like, or that's more of a collective scale. I always imagined a little more what modern generations say aura in the Road Warrior entrances, but they didn't waste any time.
No,
almost every match I saw, as soon as they got into the ring, they were throwing hands.
Yeah.
Which I think again adds to the mystique of them as a team. Like they are there. There's a logic or a psychology to what they're saying at the promo table with, and I'm just jumping all over their career, what they're saying with Mean Gene or with Tony Schiavone behind the TBS table, and what they actually do when they walk out. Those things align. So when they say, men are going to die tonight and we're going to kill them, as soon as they get within striking distance, they're on you. And like, and which I feel bad for the enhancement talent of the TBS days.
I feel bad for the monkeys of the world. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But if anything, rule number one, the Road Warriors always did what they said they were going to do. Which I think, adds to the believability. And one thing we say here on the channel all the time, believing makes wrestling better. And the Road Warriors did a good job of convincing you to believe in what they were doing, especially for wearing spiked shoulder pads and face paint, man.
Right.
So Freebird SuperClash match. What's, your impressions of this particular Road Warrior match in their AWA days?
Yeah. So I went back and watched it, and obviously, I felt like, and this wasn't the first time I'd seen it, but it had been years since I'd seen any footage from it. But I was pleasantly surprised to see somebody on the Freebird side other than Gordy get some offense. So,
Yeah.
especially against the Road Warriors, and the fact that they let Michael Hayes get the offense he was speaks to their willingness. Because a lot of people talk about how the Road Warriors would potato you and they would go into business for themselves, but you don't sell for Michael Hayes, especially Buddy Roberts, if you're
Oh,
not.
no, not Buddy. Well, Buddy was even on the outside of the ring, right? He and
Yeah,
Ellering were kind of having a tete-a-tete in
yeah,
that match.
and you don't sell for. I mean, the only person you would not have a choice to sell for is Terry Gordy.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, it just, to me, even though it's not the main thing about why we enjoy wrestling, it was refreshing to kind of have the myth that the Road Warriors were not willing to work with anybody. Uh, they just want to beat people up. But the fact that they had such a even match with the Freebirds and not just Gordy, just kind of dispelled that mindset. So I was really glad to see that. Um, I am a little, and I watched back a lot of matches. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular match didn't have any commentary on it. Am I right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the feed, from
Yeah.
the video
Well,
itself or
yeah, there's a lot of matches that I've watched. There were some with the Steiners back on the first episode, and there were some uh, from uh, what was it? From Steamboat too, and
yeah,
and I think that um, there was such a presence of, for lack of a better term, even though this wasn't a house show, it
right.
was super card, but it was approached like a house show from a
Yeah,
production standpoint. You could tell by the way it was lit. Now maybe they had more. Obviously, they had more cameras than a house show would have, but
sure.
no commentary.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was a aftermarket edit. So I, even though I never was too big on AWA commentary, it would have been nice to have some, anyway. But regardless, it kind of added to the intensity too of
Yeah.
what the Warriors were doing. So in a roundabout way, appreciated that. But um, I think that they did a great job of. And I'm not dissing do Michael Hayes. I'm not at all. But as far as a worker and a wrestler, just my personal taste is on the mic. I loved him, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to see him wrestle.
Sure.
And just like his high step and strutting and all this stuff, great, but just let Terry Gordy do the rest.
I've
But I will say from a Michael Hayes standard kind of thing, he did pretty good. He held down his end of the bargain and did what he was supposed to do. But from a work standpoint, um, was really really pleasantly surprised. I guess the historical significance of the Road Warriors and the Freebirds, um, for me, doesn't take any explanation or any
mm,
expounding. Uh, but to actually watch a match where Michael Hayes contributes, on a level other than, um, sorry, if you're outside of Georgia, this may not sink in too much, but the dude was a Greg Allman clone. I mean, that's who he looked like, and so.
yeah.
But anyway, I digress there. But yeah, can't really say anything about it. I would have changed, like I said earlier, the fact that there wasn't any commentary on it. But on the other hand, the lack of commentary kind of adds to the intensity and,
Yeah.
and and let your brain kind of do its own homework. So
Yeah. The a couple of interesting observations about this particular match, and we got a question by the way coming up here in a second. So
awesome.
just to, from a viewer, um, is, the SuperClash. It was, in all intents and purposes, a super card, right? So, for those of you guys who, fantasy book, and we talk sometimes like, what if AEW and WWE did a card together, whatever, like that's what SuperClash was. It was multiple promotions joining together, to put on, an event. And I think they did 3 of them, I want to say, before AWA went out of business, maybe. And the pros and cons to that is, one, you get to see pretty, never before seen matches. But 2, if you ever go to Wikipedia and look at the history of those events, you won't see a lot of clean finishes, because nobody really wants to play ball with each other in those cases. You'll get a few here and there, and it's a little dusty-ish at the end of this match as well. But I will say this, just one spot, which sounds so simplistic and elementary, but in the context of the intensity of that match, and again, like you pointed out, with there not being any commentary on the feed adding to it, there is a spot where Animal press slams Terry Gordy, which is I'm overselling it a little bit, but I was so surprised. I almost felt like I was seeing Hulk slam Andre. Just because Gordy was not a guy, Gordy could have been a country road warrior for all intents and purposes, because he was a guy who I don't remember seeing leave his feet a lot in a match, unless he was in the ring with someone who was going to make him leave his feet, like a road warrior or a Steiner, which if I'm presuming and projecting on him, I think Gordy kind of liked it that way. Like, if you're like, nah, put me in the ring with those guys. And it is, your observations about Hayes, I think, are on point too, because I think, whether he would admit it or not, I think Hayes probably sees himself as more of a Gordy than a Roberts in the ring sometimes. And I've even heard Jim Cornette say the same thing about Garvin later on, who thought himself a one. And because he and Hayes were in a War Games with the Road Warriors in '89. And the speaking of Gordy and the Miracle Violence connection, the Road Warriors had Dr. Death on their team in that match. And if you're going to try to big man those 3 guys, like, they're going to kill you.
It's not going to.
No, it's not going to. You're not going to have a good time. Like, you're going to have a bad time. RT Rick is one of the guys in the chat today, and he's got a question, David. I'll let you take it. Which version of the Road Warriors was your favorite? AWA, WCW, which I'm assuming is involving NWA, or WWF.
I'm gonna say that their opponents are probably the biggest influence to how I answer this question, and I'll have to say WCW/NWA, with the exception of the Hart Foundation over WWF, and maybe 1 or 2 others, and other than the Freebirds and AWA, and I think they might have wrestled the Fabulous Ones. The Fabulous Ones were a world-class tag team, but I think they might have hopped over to AWA for a minute and wrestled them there. That was a good match. But
was that the team Stan Lane was on before he came to the Midnight Express? Okay.
Yeah. There were the Fantastics and the Fabulous Ones.
I get them conflated.
But it was the one with Stan Lane and Steve Kern.
That would be Fabulous Ones.
But I'd have to say NWA. W. And for me personally, before the advent of WCW, it would be the NWA,
Crockett.
Probably starting with the Russians and ending with like Doom and those guys, the Samoa SWAT team and all that stuff.
I'm inclined to agree. I don't think there's ever been, and ever will be again, a more consistently hot crowd than late '80s Crockett, in my lifetime. Because I've never heard or since, other than, a little bit in Nitro, the Nitro days just a little bit at like the peak of the Sting NWO stuff before it all went off the rails. Very rarely did I ever hear a crowd pop for punches. And I honestly, I missed that. Like that gave me so much energy watching as a fan. Nothing could beat a good Carolina or Virginia crowd in the mid to late 80s. I mean, that region, you know, and I agree with you about the teams they faced too, just to run down the road. And I was a big fan of a lot of the teams they got to match up with in WWF too.
Yeah.
But even now, like just like it is now, is how it was then. There's a level of sanitization that goes on in WWF that takes a little bit of the teeth off of who the Road Warriors are. They're still so over the top and so engrossing and charismatic. You still, you know, you still get them even in the WWF. But in that NWA time, we can just rattle off some of the teams they did face like during that time that you already mentioned. Some of them: Doom, Samoan SWAT team, Steiners, Powers of Pain, Russians, Horsemen, Midnight Express, like just a murderer's row of teams to work with. And I mean, that was when they were baby faces mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a heel run in there too and faced some other teams. So yeah, there was a whole lot for them to work with and just an incredibly hot crowd during that time. So RT says NWA as well. So I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
So let's keep the NWA Road Warriors going.
Yeah.
We're going to jump ahead now to the Great American Bash a year later in 1986, back when it was still a tour and not just one standalone pay-per-view show. This show also available on YouTube. It's in the playlist. You can find it as well. Speaking of the Russians, Uncle Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff against Hawk and Animal in a chain match. So I think you have Animal chained up to Ivan and Hawk chained up to Nikita, which is the Biggie special. If you know what I'm saying, man, just two meaty men slapping meat like with a chain is just absolutely amazing stuff. So and if you're looking for, you know, your death match fix, Ivan starts bleeding, I want to say in the first like 60 seconds in this match.
He bled almost as often as Dusty, but not quite.
Yeah. He was the Moxley of his day.
Right.
Just tap the button right there and get it going. But yeah, so, you know, you had in the lead up to that, so that's 86, you know, and if you guys have gone back and seen the Nikita episode, you know, we talked a lot about Nikita and who he was. And, you know, he had that sort of Rusev-ish, like Rusev gimmick in a Goldberg body, you know? And so imagine that, you know, coming up against the Road Warriors, like that's prime Road Warrior sized opponent right there. And just absolute carnage in that match. And they just get to straight whipping each other with those chains. And it's just, you know, no DQ, just a straight up fight in that match. What are your memories of the chain match and the feud with the Russians? Because, you know, it was easy for Dusty, you know, the American Dream, to do the whole Rocky IV thing with Nikita, and then of course Magnum and the face turn and all that stuff. But then you bring the monsters in to face the evil foreigners, and it gives you a whole different dynamic where the guys who scare you are now all of a sudden the ones who got your back.
Right. Yeah. So with the Road Warriors joining the mix there and aligning themselves with Dusty, it didn't really seem to me in retrospect like Dusty could ever really fight from underneath anymore, because it's like, you know, you know, but I mean, that's fine. It worked. Obviously we're sitting here talking about it. But I think what I remember most was, and I remember this vividly from watching NWA Worldwide out of the Mid-Atlantic time. And there was basically to set up the incoming Road Warriors, which technically they hadn't been on they hadn't been on NWA TV yet since they had been in AWA. Obviously, they had, Georgia Championship Wrestling before, but they basically showed a match from another promotion, even though wink, wink, it wasn't really a big deal to show an AWA match on NWA television, but they wanted to show the similarities between the Road Warriors and the Russian team. And what I remember, and I don't remember who the opponents were for either side. They weren't. They were job matches, but it showed the Road Warriors, sans Iron Man, running to the ring and just sliding under the bottom rope and just potatoing the heck out of whoever is there and
Yes.
beating them and beating them. That was one week. And it was like, here's your introduction to the team that's coming, the Road Warriors. And the next week it said, we've understood that there's a lot of animosity from Paul Ellering towards the Koloffs and what they stand for and the way they seem to be bullying people around. And so then they show this match of the Russians who run to the ring, slide under the bottom rope, and just start beating the mess out. And this might have been the Mulkeys.
Okay.
Like that, but just beating, like, so both teams essentially dominating in the same fashion, showing the same animosity, showing the same savagery. And so, and Bob Cottle was probably on commentary or something there.
Yeah.
Once.
Well, look what we have here.
So, but yeah, I just, I remember the juxtaposition of, the Road Warriors and the Koloffs and seeing how they both had the same kind of savagery coming into the ring, but obviously, one stood for good if the Road Warriors could do that. And then, you have the evil empire of, the mid 80s Russians. And so setting them up, it was almost like you didn't have to build anything.
Yeah.
Before they even really went to the promotion. You were just waiting. Okay, the Road Warriors going to wrestle this week. Great. Okay, they're wrestling jobbers. It's like, when are we finally going to get to see them go? And so I don't remember when the first match was. It might have actually been a 6-man or 8-man match when they actually got into the ring with the Russians. But that was very, very, from me watching TV, and I have to assume anybody else, one of the more anticipated matchups of the early to mid 80s.
I think just building up two unstoppable forces, knowing that eventually they'll collide, it's like, I mean, we're seeing that play out right now with Obafemi and Brock Lesnar. I mean, just like, oh, this guy's big and destructive. We already know that guy's big and destructive. Why not? Let's just throw him in there. Like, do we need, how many reasons do we need to want to see them fight? So yeah, it is absolutely. I mean, sometimes less is more in the storytelling, and not often, but when you have all that, why not? Another question from a friend of the channel, last name, middle name. Did the Road Warriors have any matches in New Japan? So I'll give you my best answer from the digging I've done, and David, feel free to supplement anything I might have left out. So I do know they may have wrestled. They didn't hold any titles in New Japan. So like we held, we talked about in our first episode, the Steiners holding the IWGB tag titles in the early 90s over there, especially when WCW and New Japan were doing a little bit more together. So there's a period of time, and I want to say is it after NWA and right before WWF, or it's right after WWF, where Animal takes, like, I wouldn't say a retirement, but he just like takes time off, and Hawk goes over to New Japan. Yeah. And he teams up with Kensuke Sasaki, who takes the name Power Warrior, and they have a team called the Hellraisers, which is, a New Japan Road Warriors kind of, I hate to call it a knockoff when Hawk is a part of it, but I mean, it was better than Animal and Heidenreich, I suppose, but still, that's as close as we got to like a sustained title run in New Japan with the Road Warriors, because they won the tag titles there, Power Warrior and Hawk. But Hawk and Animal proper, never. The only time, the closest they got was All Japan recognized the NWA International Tag Team titles during that Crockett era, and they were international tag team champions at that time. And I think they'd spent some time over there defending those, maybe. But yeah, nothing super sustained like we'd seen with the Steiners or say Gordy and Williams or some of those other guys. And if anybody has the receipts, feel free to back them up. I'm humble to be corrected, but from what I looked into, did not see a whole lot there. So, please check out the chain match. You won't be disappointed there. A lot of fun, a lot of violence, and a lot of a loud crowd. So now we take a departure from the NWA and WCW, and Hawk and Animal arrive in the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF. After Demolition had already been doing the LOD light thing, and I don't mean to besmirch Demolition too much. I feel like Demolition became enough of their own thing that I don't like calling them clones. I think the Powers of Pain were far more clones of the Road Warriors than Demolition was, and also I think Barbarian notwithstanding, Barbarian and Haku monsters, and Warlord was very muscly, but like but Demolition, I mean, those dudes could work too. I mean, Barry Darsow was great, and he was a contemporary of Hawk and Animals too. Smash was right, another one of those Minnesota dudes.
Yeah. He bounced at the same place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's something in the water. There's some pro wrestling elixir in the water that was in the water or something else in Minnesota in the 80s, because it produced the Road Warriors, Smash, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, a few others. Nikita out of that area. So very very
before the southern accent.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was delighted that the WWE Vault channel, they've been uploading old Coliseum video releases as well. So on one of those, we found a gem from WrestleFest 1991, just a babyface versus babyface tag team match of the Legion of Doom versus the Hart Foundation. Non-title, just Brett and the Anvil going against Hawk and Animal, what's so surprising to me is you wouldn't think those teams would go together. I feel like, on paper, I'd look at that match and be like, Brett is going to have a bad day at the office, because Anvil is the kind of guy you'd put in a match against the Road Warriors. Brett, honestly, I mean this in the most respectful, endearing way possible. The Road Warriors is a little too good for this matchup. Like, can we, maybe put him in with Hennig or Scott Hall or somebody else? But I feel like after watching this match, though, and you can tell me your thoughts here in a minute too, David, I feel like this match had Brett's fingerprints all over it.
Oh yeah.
It was such a good, I cannot if you guys hear us in the chat or on streams or even, A and B, I don't know so much about Just Alex, but like, if you ever hear us like lament what tag team wrestling used to be, how good it can be, and you want to know what good tag team wrestling was before the Hardys, Dudleys, and Edge and Christian inadvertently redefined what it means to have an exciting tag team match, this is a match for you, because you have the Road Warriors doing Road Warrior things in the match, but also Brett is no idiot. He's a technical wrestler. He's smarter than them. And so he's using his psychology in the match to ground Hawk for most of the match. And it's an old tried and true method, but they worked the I mean, Hawk was working like Ricky Morton in this match, like face in peril, like could not tag out to Animal to save his life. And you know, that old shtick works really well when executed by a good professional wrestler. But it, you know, David, if I can say so myself, I find it to be even more believable once the match went on and you kind of knew Hawk was gassed. Like, because like Ricky Morton, he's got the conditioning of a Ricky Steamboat. You know, those guys, you know, in our day and age now, be like, oh, they're selling so great, but they can pop up and do a sequence if they need to, you know. But Hawk, like, you know, either he was selling super well or like Brett was letting him be gassed to further sell the impact of the Hart Foundation controlling that match. And the way they're able to still do the hot tag stuff and the come from behind, making Hawk look like an underdog is a huge achievement. I think a believable one, I should say.
Yeah, I think he was legit gassed, and that, now that I think about it, I think that Brett probably, because people can say all the things they want to say about Brett and whatever bitterness, but like one thing he was really big on was respect.
Yeah,
and it still is. And I feel like the proof is in the pudding. You can look at this match and see how well it was executed. And
excellently executed.
Yeah, it was. It was excellently executed. But you don't do that. It's not, a match like that is not one-sided. You have to work together. And so I think that I kind of imagine, even though obviously I don't know, but you know, I imagine like Hawk being like, man, I'm gonna blow up, and Brett's probably like, it's okay, let me take care of you. You'll see. It'll be fine.
I'll take over.
Right, I'll take it. Yeah. But yeah, obviously I'm just pontificating on that, but yeah, it was nice to see. I mean, because then the hot tag truly becomes a hot tag.
Yeah. And
that
one thing that was so special about that too, with it just being like just a throwaway match on a Coliseum videotape, is that you know Vince, especially back then, you know, Hulk versus Ultimate Warrior notwithstanding, or Brett versus Roddy Piper. I'm just naming all these examples, and I'm about to be a hypocrite, but like he really veered away from face versus face matches as a norm. I mean, the industry was a lot like that too, but he so you really never got to see these kind of tag teams square up. You wouldn't have seen you wouldn't have seen LOD and the Hart Foundation in a program, or LOD versus the Rockers back then, you know, like they're pretty much going to be tethered to whoever a heel team is at that point. And on the side, by the way, somewhere out in the ether of the WWE Vault channel, speaking of babyface tag teams versus each other, there is a WWF Steiners versus Brett and Owen match out there too, before, you know, Owen kicked Brett's leg out of his leg. And so so that's out there as well. But just like, it's cool now with all the hindsight of all these years, and there's no angle attached to it, just to be like, oh, these guys did get in the ring together and they, you know, put something together, and it's like really good. But yeah, can't recommend this match enough. I would say out of our entire Mount Rushmore list, like this is probably like the purest. It's not the most prototypical Road Warrior match, but it is, I'd say, the best tag team match, like out of those. So it's absolutely worth your time. Not super long. None of these matches are super long either, which you would come to expect from the Road Warriors anyways. They weren't out here flexing work rate. So
right. Well, their longest matches were probably War Games matches because of staggered entry.
And those guys usually came in later too, right? Like,
right.
You can start, Dusty.
Let's let Dusty start.
Yeah, right. Let him and Arn handle it.
Right.
I'll come in for the number 5 pop. Okay.
Right,
Number
right.
5. All right. Well, last but not least, I would we were in agreement that this might be the most important Road Warriors match, at least in the journey of their career up until this point. Also, too, just coming off this Hart Foundation match, I think out of the 4, this match is probably the best harmony of a good tag team match and a good Road Warriors style match, because it's a no DQ kind of street fightish sort of match. It's and it's from a major show, so it's a hot crowd. SummerSlam 1991, WWF Tag Team Titles, Legion of Doom versus the Nasty Boys. And Nasty Boys are great opponents for the Road Warriors too, because they're big enough to where they could be believable if they team up on one of them to be dominant. You know, they're a little bigger than a Michael Hayes, or more foreboding than that. Not quite a Gordy size though. And of course they have Jimmy Hart with them, so they're like cheating and stuff too. So like that helps. But they have this sort of, brawl type match that evolves into a tag match that evolves back into a brawl again. So like, you kind of get the best of both worlds from this match, and it's for the tag titles. And this is sort of the crown jewel completion of the Road Warriors being AWA, NWA, and WWF tag team champions, and on a massive stage. And not for nothing, it's got a fantastic Hawk promo before the match as well. Well, which we can get to. We will talk about the promos to wrap up the show for sure. So what's Nasty Boys, like, it feels like, I don't know, does it feel like to you like their run in WWF like really like was over as soon as it started? Like it felt like really fast.
Yeah, I honestly, so my knowledge, or when I think about the Nasty Boys as a whole, I don't automatically, like if I think about a match or whatever the case may be, off the top of my head, I don't know if I'm thinking WWF or WCW. Because like they're almost like world jumpers to me. Like I can't ever place in my head which iteration of the Nasty Boys I'm talking about. And plus,
they didn't change a whole lot. They were pretty consistent.
No, they didn't. And they didn't stay. We mentioned how the Road Warriors, when they went over to WWE, kind of, and I don't mean this derogatory, but if there was more cartoonism to be had, that was going to be had, because of the WWE and what they valued. But like you were saying, I think it didn't seem to be any fluctuation between or in what the Nasty Boys were, regardless of what federation they were in. And in watching this match, when it comes to the Nasty Boys, I get kind of reminded, or because of his association with Hogan and some of the other people from the WCW days, I think about hold on a second.
Knobs.
Now I'm getting them mixed in my head. I think about Knobs. Yeah, and like he is the Nasty Boys if I'm not careful,
Yeah.
But when it comes to a match and the workability and just the pure enjoyment of watching a fight, Sags is where it's at for me. Like, with that, I didn't realize how much I appreciated his work to make me believe that the Nasty Boys were a credible threat to whomever they may be facing. And so, So anyway, I just really was reminded of that. But like I said, I'm never going to cheer for those boys over the Road Warriors. But like this historically, I can't think of. I mean, it completes the Triple Crown, so
sure.
Can't imagine a more important match from a posterity or history sake than this one. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, not for nothing, the bump Sags took on the Doomsday device in that match it's a Mount Rushmore bump too.
Yeah.
Like he full rotation. I don't think I never read that he got injured from that spot. I know he did have a neck injury that cut his career short, but I don't think it was from that. But you could convince yourself that that was the one that did it, just the way that he took that move, which is again just added to the, no pun intended, added to the nastiness of LOD's demeanor in that match. But you were saying,
Yeah. Oh no, I just yeah, I agree. I mean, and I'm a NWA WCW loyalist when it comes to it, but I mean, there's no denying that this match and then the match with the Hart Foundation, obviously. I mean,
sure,
anybody uh, with, well, I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody capable of having a bad match with the Hart Foundation, but uh, you know, uh, if we're gonna pick two Fed matches, I mean, I can't complain over the
yeah,
historical significance of this last one and just the overall quality of the one previously. So,
yeah.
but yeah, enjoyed it.
Ironically, I think the only team to have a bad match with the Hart Foundation that I can remember is Sean and Marty at the Rockers, but it wasn't their fault, just because the rope broke in that match. But
Yeah,
that wasn't really a bad performance. But yeah,
maybe
now
that's when the drama started. You know.
maybe
Yeah.
you did this on purpose. You don't want to put me
Yeah.
over. Oh gosh, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, you know what? I love it when we do these episodes and we rediscover maybe an underrated talent that doesn't get talked about a lot. And that's one thing about the Nasty Boys too. Like I was doing, I was reading up on title reigns and stuff the other day, and I forgot just about how like when because the Nasty Boys wrapped up probably pretty soon after that in WWF and went back to WCW, and like they were there in that like Steamboat Austin era,
Yeah.
still working in the tag division and stuff. And I'm sure it was funny. I can't actually think of a whole lot. I know they had a pretty brutal match with Foley, and I think it was Foley and Sullivan, maybe, um, where Foley was doing Foley things. Another street fight, but they, yeah, like I mean, they were so consistent. Like I think just about any territory or company you saw them wrestle in, you knew what you were going to get, and it's pretty much to the degree of expectation all around, which is pretty rare for talents, especially in that era when the WWF existed to, you know, sell foam shoulder pads and stuff to kids. So you get what you get. But yeah, so those are our four matches. And again, I implore you to check the episode description and visit our playlist for those links to those matches, as well as a couple of bonus items in the playlist as well, a couple extra matches, a couple of promos. And speaking of promos, we would not be able to wrap up a discussion on the Road Warriors without talking about their interview capabilities and interview moments and stuff. So David, you want to take the wheel on this one?
Yeah, I wanted to, and I mentioned this to Steven, obviously, because he brought it up, but I wanted to, I really appreciate the whole Mount Rushmore concept and everything Steven does to put all this stuff together. And so, what I wanted to do, because it's become such a part of our vernacular over the years in childhood and, buddies of mine from college, just for as long my whole life, is to take Road Warrior promos and do a Mount Rushmore of them, or a Mount Vesuvius, or whatever, a smaller mountain, just dedicated to the four best promos done by the Road Warriors. And you have to take into consideration, uh, and this was actually on the Road Warrior DVD that WWE put out, but they talked about how and I think our even though he has no idea who we are, I would call him a good friend, Dan Soder.
Yeah.
Mentioned.
I'd love to be his friend. He seems great.
Yeah, I love everything that guy does.
Yeah.
But talking about how Animal sets up the promo. Sometimes it's Paul Ellering, sometimes Paul's in the middle, but Animal goes before Hawk, and Animal's just in your face, and then Hawk does something that's, if you listen to it from an intensity standpoint, probably just sounds like trash talking. But if you dissect 80% of what his promos were over the course of his career, he said some really, really genius and interesting stuff to me. And so my idea was I was going to go through and pick four. It's not hard, right? To pick four promos that would fit that format. Animal starting off, being all intense, and Hawk saying something twisted and dark and funny.
Yeah.
And so everything I watched was amazing. And so I couldn't come up with one.
Yeah.
So Steven, I'm sure, has some things he'd like to hit, some highlights and everything. But I would just implore you, the listener or watcher or whatever you deem yourself, to just get on your whatever device that you watch videos on and watch Road Warrior promos, because every single one of them was good. And Steven, I'm sorry. I know we talked about this. I don't want to steal your thunder, but if I can say maybe not my favorite promo that Hawk ever did, but my most memorable is when he did several variations of this, but I believe it was Hawk that said, "We snack on danger, we dine on death, and dead men don't make money."
Like, I mean, that line would still work today.
He would be the poet laureate of whatever promotion he was in. And so
absolutely.
I'm going to shut up now and let you talk. But yeah, I don't think that there's any promo, there was one towards the end that is kind of hard to watch. But let me just say this before I was looking through, and both of the Road Warriors are gone now, and I have certain feelings about that, because it's always tough when something you revere, and it's part of why we do what we do. Well, we do what we do. Yeah. But part of the reason you're watching this is because you grasp on, and maybe you have a connection to this at some part of your life. But it's always tough for that same reason when a wrestler passes away. And so we've lost Hawk and Animal in the past few years. And as I was looking for promos, I found one of Hawk, and this is when he was at ECW, and he was by himself, and he was all he was doing a promo. He was in full gear, paint, he had the spikes on and everything, but he was out of breath. He was just out of gas, and it was tough to watch. And but I've heard the stories, even though not everything we do is related to the real life aspect of what we watch and why we watch. But I've heard accounts from his wife of his last few days, and I'm talking about Hawk. And he just seemed like a dude who wanted to take care of his family, and he had just ultimate respect. Now, it's not to say he wasn't a hellraiser in the 80s, but
sure.
But anyway, I started talking about it, and I didn't want to not finish it. So
yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
Even Animal, I think, in that documentary, the DVD documentary, which is also available on WWE's YouTube page, that in its entirety, he talked about how generous of spirit Hawk was. Like, he told a little anecdote about giving a guy money at an airport one time, and Animal was skeptical that, he said, in typical wrestler lingo, he's like, what if that guy's working you, whatever. And Hawk's like, man, if he has to lower himself to that point to try to make ends meet, then he needs it more than I do, or whatever. So it's an amazing, it's a very interesting and humbling kind of perspective, how in life we can be, I was just thinking of the movie Sinners because I saw it a couple of weeks ago again, but like there's a line from a song that said, I love the blues, I'm filled with the blues and holy water too. Like we are our best and our worst at the same time, at least in this plane of life, in this season. And until things are made new. But like Hawk had a lot of Hawkisms for sure. And I had some favorite Hawkisms. I think I could share a few that are just off the dome. I really did try to find them specifically. Obviously that one Dan Soder references, which I put the Chris Van Vliet clip of Soder. It's from the 91 Nasty Boys match from before, where he talks about, there's boys, there's men, and there's monsters. And like, again, it's just like everything he said for a few years could have been made, would have been made a t-shirt today. And that was a good one. Obviously the one that you referenced, like I feel like that's their gold standard, dead men don't make money. And there's also another one too that's like it. I almost feel like if it wasn't coming from like a 6'7", juiced up, face painted, spiked shoulder pad wearing man, it almost might be like a dad joke. But when it's coming from him, you're feeling threatened. And I think they're selling war games because he was like, well, and again, he's like, well, it's always his lead off when Animal tosses to him. And he's like, well, life is full of ups and downs. And Horseman, for you, that means you're going to go up into the cage and down onto the ground. Yeah. And then you're going to go up into the stands. And he just, parlays that immediately into all the violent things he's going to do to them. And he also, I wouldn't say I don't recommend it because Hawk was a great promo, but there's one I won't repeat that you can find as well. Because I think whoever uploaded it got a little choosy with his words on the episode, on the clip description. But he has a pretty explicit promo against Flair when he has a one-on-one match with Flair, where he's like taking on the Space Mountain. He's riffing on the Space Mountain stuff too. But it, again, which sounds terrifying coming from a man like Hawk. Like when he was in the NWA, before he had like the 2-piece face paint, when it was just the full mask, I feel like that was a scarier Hawk.
When it was
I don't know.
the bird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like the wing and the whatever, although that is the face paint that I most identify him with is this.
Yeah. I always got it as a ninja star.
Ninja star. Yeah. Okay. So, those are good ones. I'm trying to think if there was another one that, I will say this too, because I want to give Animal his flowers, because this is a Road Warrior episode, not just a Hawk episode. But you had sent me, and this is in the playlist as well. There's a montage of the AWA promos, which is early Road Warrior stuff. But I'm telling you, there are pieces of, and maybe it's
pre-well.
Yeah, pre-well. Yeah, before that, Animal. I don't know if it's the influence of superstar Billy Graham, like so many other confident, jacked up heels in the day, but Animal's cadence in his aggression is like 25 years predating Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner in one of his promos. And I'm trying to go verbatim here, where he's like, all you fat people sitting on the couch eating potato chips, watching Happy Days, and like literally said watching Happy Days. So this had to have been, late 70s, early 80s. From that time. Seems like it was cut straight out of the Steiner Math era. Big Papa Pump, which is just hilarious to me when you discover something like that and you're like, oh my gosh, what year was this again? But again, it's just again, believable aggression and so very pro wrestling from Hawk and Animal. You know, depending on who you know, we watch wrestling for lots of different reasons, and there's a lot of quantifiers that we put in place for what makes the best wrestler or the best kind of match. But in the era of presentation, I feel too old to use the word aura, but you know, like the charisma you bring into the ring, the ring presence you have, like you have a really difficult time topping the Road Warriors when it comes to tag teams.
Yeah.
And they worked according to the skill that was allotted to them too. They didn't try to be a team that they weren't either. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes in wrestling. Like, oh, you can't go 30, you can't do a 60-minute Broadway or whatever they say, you know, like, yeah, but you don't have to. I don't want to see the Road Warriors or Nikita or Luger do 60 minutes, you know, like let's see those guys work within the framework that they're presented as. And the Road Warriors did that maybe better than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. The hour long match thing, even though it's entertaining from a wrestling or sports entertainment standpoint, when you get right down to it, it is not super believable unless you're willing to suspend your unbelief. Because not that I want to glorify violence in real life goes, but of the fights that I've seen, you know, that weren't in a boxing ring, like real
Right.
life fights, were not that long.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's but
UFC doesn't have hour-long fights.
right, exactly.
Yeah. And the only times where I really found that believable, and I'm sure I'm being a little biased because they were my favorites, was like Steamboat and Flair, because they're wrestling for 40 minutes of that hour. Like they're not exchanging blows so much other than chops, you know, but
Right.
a lot of times they're just trying to out wrestle each other, you know, and you can make a case for the condition, and also their conditioning was peak, you know, so like they weren't tired, they were still moving at full speed 40, 50 minutes in. And so yeah, you know, it works in rare cases. But yeah, last but not least, I think, you know, we did this last week with Steamboat. Play a little what if. Is there a what if in your mind for the Road Warriors at all? I would, I'll tee one up. In case, since I didn't prep you for this before we hit record, but for you to be thinking of one, I think it's probably kind of the most lowest hanging fruit, obvious one. Like, what if Hawk had stayed clean longer or sooner? I just trying to imagine the sort of ships passing in the night they had in different territories, you know, like if they had had an extra year in WWF, I think they would have been there, because I think they were gone. From what I heard, Hawk, my time might be off on this, but I think I'm remembering this right, that Hawk kind of disappeared after SummerSlam 92 in Wembley. Which would have been just a few months before the Steiners arrived in WWF. And seeing them in WWF could have been a lot of fun. We probably only would have gotten a Coliseum video match out of it since they were both baby faces. But could they have done a heel run in WWF? Like, you know, would they have been able to put a spike in Bret Hart's eye? You know, you know, how would that have worked? I don't know.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. And not that I'm an expert on the, you know, creative minds of each federation or whatever the case may be, but I don't know that the powers that be in the WWE, if there was a smattering of cheers, would have bought that these guys can be heel.
Yeah.
Listen to this pop. And,
Right.
you know, it's like the very genesis of who they were. And,
yeah.
It's like, and plus, you know, with the bent on attitude, they even though they probably weren't the kind of attitude that they were wanting to draw out, because it was mainly just attitude without the over hypersexualization. So,
yeah.
But it was just attitude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that timing wise that they would have been able to really do that. Now, when Paul Ellering came back, that might have made it a little more believable because what was that promo that Hawk cut when Ellering came back and they was like, we've just been aimless. We were kind of a runaway train. Except
Hmm.
scarier now though. Look who's driving the train.
Yeah,
Talking about Ellering, So, um, but yeah,
that reminds me of another Hawkism, by the way.
go ahead, go ahead.
Is that our elevator doesn't go all the way to the top because there ain't no elevator.
Yeah,
Like, what? I'm like, okay,
that's great.
whatever
Yeah,
you say, man.
I guess you gotta take the stairs, but
Right. Yeah.
that's cardio. But yeah, but yeah, I think that would be good. My fantasy booking for them would have been involving the Legion of Doom, but not in the WWE sense. It would have been the original Legion of Doom.
Mm.
And it would have stayed a faction for so long that you would have had slightly twisted and maybe a little bit of a prima donna uh, team of a previous episode, the Steiners, join the faction. So you
Mm.
would have had the Road Warriors, you would have had the Steiners, you would have had somebody filter in and out because you're going to need to have that mouthpiece in there. And given Kevin Sullivan's association with Rick Steiner through the Varsity Club, I mean, why not?
Sure.
Kevin Sullivan. But when it comes to dark factions, Kevin Sullivan's always my answer. So that's kind of cheap. That's the easy way out for me. But somebody, not JJ, because he's too preppy. But
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I would say somebody as a mouthpiece. But to get the Road Warriors and the Steiners and maybe another single, because by that time Bundy would have been. I mean, he would have had to have been beat too many times to be scary. But I would say if well, this is just wishful thinking, and since it's hypothetical, it doesn't matter. Jake stays clean, and so you've got
Yeah.
the Warriors, you've got the Steiners, and you've got Jake, and there's your mouthpiece and your figurehead.
Yeah. Stealing an idea from a previous episode, how do you think Gary Hart would fit as a mouthpiece in that particular, like, like a sort of dark
Yeah,
negative zone version of Paul Ellering?
yeah. I think so. Two things about Gary is that my answer to Gary Hart is always going to be yes, but it's going to be an automatic. Uh, it's going to be an automatic, as sinister can be. Uh,
Yeah.
your heel. So there's going to be no lovable, goofy quality
Yeah.
for Rick Steiner. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
no like when a Steiner line gets hit, you're not going to cheer because
No.
Gary Hart is a part
Gonna
of it.
gasp.
And so yeah, I just yeah, I think that would be a great choice. But that would be a great way. So if you wanted to put that faction against Dusty and his
Yeah.
people, Gary Hart would be the way to go because then there would be
Mm,
no guaranteed no cheering for the heels.
no
Um,
doubt.
yeah,
I've got one more thought. You mentioned Attitude Era, and had people stayed clean, they still would have been a little bit older.
mm-hmm.
But Vince, right before or even on the cusp of the Attitude Era, he had a real hankering for gang warfare.
Oh yeah,
He did that, and I'm remembering that time where
Las
it was,
Mariquas,
yeah, it was a bunch of mid card, yeah,
DOA,
yeah, and all that stuff. Well, the Road Warriors started off before they found the paint and the shoulder pads as sort of village people esque
right.
bikers.
Remember those pictures? Yeah, those are pretty bad. Yeah,
I wonder if they kept the paint I don't know if they could keep the shoulder pads and still make it work, but if they could have replaced the Harris brothers in DOA
Mm.
and a sort of more grittier street level evolved version of the LOD and putting them with Crush, um, adding a little legitimacy to that group. Because if you look at that and then you have Ron Simmons and The Rock and, you know, D'Lo and Mark Henry and the Nation, the Barik was sorry, they never did it for me on any level. But I think there's a way because they did have a small feud with DX with the New Age Outlaws, anyways, but they were just really made to look pitiful, and I wonder if any of that booking had to do with Hawk's state of being in any way. I don't know. I don't know. But you know, if he was in a better place, I wonder could that have been a little bit more competitive. I don't know. But I like your idea better though, for sure. I feel like it's got more teeth to it.
Yeah.
Well,
younger too. So,
true. Yeah, that helps a lot.
time frame can be a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So no better time than to lean on the familiar catchphrase now. But I guess you know that'll wrap us up here for our episode on the Road Warriors. Appreciate you guys joining us and watching. Feel free to leave comments in the chat or on the video. You know, if you have any additional Road Warrior questions, or if you want to recommend, you know, or relive your favorite Road Warrior memories. And there are plenty of matches and moments we didn't talk about. Like, and part of these videos are to kind of stir that conversation, stir those memories, to kind of have more coming along. So let us know what you think, and always feel free to leave a comment on any subjects you'd like to see us cover in the future. We've got a few lined up we may be coming at you with in the next few weeks. And but until then, thanks for joining us to talk about the Road Warriors this week. And as always, don't forget to be a mark. Being a mark means you believe. Believing makes wrestling better. And we will see you guys next time. Take care of yourselves.